Here we are again with EXO on the couch, and today we're very fortunate to have another Detextian with us, and that's Andy Budiman. Welcome, Andy.
Thanks, Dave, for having me on.
Not a problem at all. And, it'll be great to learn a little bit more about Andy and how you've come to be involved with Detextian.
Sure. Look, my background has always been in design. And in fact, I've been a serial entrepreneur since 2000. In fact, that's when I met you, Dave.
Absolutely.
When I have my own internet design and development agency back in Perth.
Yes.
And did that for 6 years, then moved to Melbourne and work in a number of scale-ups and large corporations, and mainly in establishing design or UX department, and again, the UX terms, just come into place in about 2005, 2006. So back then we just simply call it design.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm always passionate about design and creating exciting products. And that's how I came about of meeting Tan and Adrian and starting up Detextian.
Fantastic. And so tell us a little bit about your role with Detextian and what you've done to utilize that human-centered design approach to the product development.
Sure. Look, I'm fortunate that with Detextian, I was involved pretty much right at the very beginning when we actually tried to conceptualize what is our offering into the marketplace. So it's very unique, the fact that we, conceptualize something completely new, from a blank a sheet of paper, essentially. Yeah. So we did a lot of research and talking to customers, or even, for example, with Adrian, who's our CTO, who is a hardcore, security guy from day one. And we try to understand what is the market in terms of the security side of things, and how we can put a marriage between the two, between the business side to the technology side. Because we felt from very, very beginning that the cybersecurity market, I guess, it's very cyber-centric. A lot of people, it's almost like a dark web kind of thing. Oh, I'm in cybersecurity. Wow, what are you guys doing? It's so secretive. There's like a secret society.
Yeah.
So what's interesting in that is the market in cybersecurity. It's become so cyber-centric that the business people don't really understand it. Yes. And the fact that if you don't understand cybersecurity from a business perspective, then how can you actually care about it? Or even want to put high value into things. And in cybersecurity, there's very often is like an inside joke that obviously you get your budget once you get breached. So once bad things happens, then you kind of take things seriously. So when we realized there is definitely a gap in the marketplace that to kind of bring the business context and designing a cybersecurity products that is geared towards business users, we interviewed a bunch of early adopters, customers, and we look around all the different tooling in the marketplace as well, try to understand what is missing. And what is interesting is also talking to a lot of the cybersecurity experts. A lot of them actually don't really understand, for example, the terminology that they've been using. For example, in Microsoft Secure Score, there's a lot of pie charts, graph, even some of the scores. For example, for certain thing is out of 250, and on certain area is out of 150. And it confuses not only myself, it's actually people that is actually in the industry as well, because they're looking at it. Back in high school, we used to get a test out of 100. It makes a lot of sense. 90 is good, 20, well, you need to work a lot harder. Yeah. But there is that inconsistency in the marketplace, and the business people totally dismiss it. Yes. So from the very onset is we use that our belief in human-centered design to really understand what is the business people looking at, and they're looking for simplicity, like most things, and we put that in the business context, and we are lucky to make that, I guess, the core foundations in terms of how we develop our products since day one. I mean, our customers that we have now some of them is our early design partners that we started the conversation with 2 years ago.
Yes.
So they've been in a journey with us since day one. And the thing they've been telling us, the pain points and the concern and the challenges that they have, we actually provide that to him by having that ongoing and iterative design process with them from pretty much day one.
Fantastic. And look, I know that the product itself gives you alerts as well to things that are happening within the organization, and you've got a dashboard to be able to see the visual oversight of all the different SaaS applications that you have within your organization. So you obviously used human-centered design to be able to build that as well, and to iteratively change that. What was that process like for you internally?
One thing about I guess user-centered design or design thinking is it's about the doing part that often is missing. And there is a joke as well very often is in design thinking, it can easily become thinking about design. Yeah. You kind of thinking over it again and again and again. And I see this a lot in corporate environment where there is a lot of analysis paralysis, right? Because you do research after research after research after research after research, then you kind of questioning again, and the new person coming in, the new agency coming in, doing the same research and finding a new angle. Now, there is no right or wrong into the research, because how you ask the questions, the context in time in terms of how you ask the participants. And you got to remember that any user testing environment is actually an artificial environment. They're not the reality, you know? The reality is, for example, during this COVID time, someone using your tool with a baby crying, their wife or their partners, their husband is, sitting next to them and also, working as well, and their 5-year-old jumping on the couch or something. That is the reality of what's happening now. So when you kind of put a layer around it and just making it artificial, you got to take it with a grain of salt. So for us, what's important is we want to get it out there as soon as possible. So we do enough amount of testing, but not too much as well, because we know that the reality of it is when people start using it, because we're finding out things that it's very hard to find even with the most sophisticated of level of user testing. I'll give you one example that we found in our product. For example, how do you display date and time? For example, you mentioned that we give users notification in terms of when things are changing, the configuration changes that it change within a specific SaaS solutions. Now, there is a lot of best practice in terms of how you display a date. Let's go with the US, the month, day, and year, right? Australia and most of the world, I guess, is the date and the month and the year. But if when we did user testing at the beginning, very often is people go with the natural thing. When you ask them, hey, how will you go about, you want to see the date when things are changed? Just go with the normal date stamp. But when we did that and we actually pushed the product out in the market and we actually learned from them when they start using it is, for certain area of the product, what they want to see is almost a countdown, because when things are changed, they want to know how many days has it lapsed changing. So we start changing instead of the normal date stamp to something like 1 day, 30 minutes, and 24 seconds. And we didn't end up going to the seconds, by the way, because it's almost like, okay, what's the point? But we're going by the hours, the days, hours, and minutes, essentially. And that's what they want to see. Now, this kind of thing is only happen when you actually test the product in the real scenarios. When they're actually using it for real, then they realize, okay, I can see the date when that thing is changing. Now I got to calculate what day it is. And very often people, even like myself now, I don't even know what day, time of day it is right now. When the software is kind of work it out for you, and that creates such a value add. I mean, that is very simple, right? I mean, but it actually saves them a lot of time and in a way money as well for the company to just being able to do that.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much, Andy. We've come to the end of our time for the session, but really appreciate you talking to us. Detextian is a fantastic solution, and if someone wants to get in touch with you to have a chat, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yes, you can email me at andy@detextian.com.
Fantastic. Thanks once again, Andy. Best of luck with Detextian, and look forward to speaking to you again.
Likewise. Thanks, David.